What happened when relationships you thought would always be there fall apart? People believe things about you that you feel aren't true, and the life you knew suddenly looks completely different. How do you stop fighting to be understood, begin trusting yourself again, and create a life that isn't defined by what happened to you? My guest today is Shawn Howerton, also known as Coach Shawn. She's a coach, speaker, and digital creator who helps people navigate the aftermath of high conflict relationships, divorce, family estrangement, and profound relational loss. But what I really want to talk with Shawn about today is what happens after everything falls apart. How do we heal? How do we stop reacting? How do we create boundaries? How do we hold on to our faith? And how do we build a beautiful life even when our story didn't unfold the way we thought it would? Shawn and I have already had an incredible conversation off the air, so I've really been looking forward to continuing it here. Shawn, welcome to Worthy and Abundant.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
My pleasure. Shawn, there was a point when the life you knew essentially fell apart. Who were you before that season, and who are you today because of what you've walked through?
Well, before that happened, I was a mom to two sets of twins, two sets of boy girl twins, born almost exactly 2 years apart. I was a stay at home mom. Before that, I had gotten my MBA and I was a consultant with Bell South. I'd also gotten my real estate license and I was practicing real estate. Then, then I met my ex husband and we had two sets of boy girl twins born almost exactly 2 years apart, and then I became a stay-at-home mom. I did have my real estate license, so I did practice real estate while I was married to my ex-husband. We did buy and sell several properties together, and I raised my kids. My ex-husband was a very absentee father. He wants to pretend like he was really there, but he traveled all of the time. He was never around. I raised my kids, and, I that was the love of my life. My kids all went to Georgia Tech. My oldest son just graduated medical school. My oldest daughter just graduated law school. My youngest son just got into law school. My youngest daughter's applying to PA schools.
You got high
Yeah,
achievers. You did a good you guys did a good job somewhat,
I don't know about you guys. He wasn't,
or
he
oh,
provided, but that was
okay.
about it.
Yeah, yeah.
His big
Oh,
contribution was fixing things around the house on the weekend, which he complained about doing that, and working. His big thing was living the double life and traveling. But I held down the fort until things started falling apart.
yeah. So you talk about reputational warfare and false narratives. How do you stop desperately trying to convince everyone of your truth when people have already formed an opinion about you?
You can't. You can't. I mean, I've got in-laws that believe whatever narratives they've been told. They've never come to me and asked me what actually happened. All you can do is live your life. And people are gonna paint whatever picture or narrative of you that they want, and they're gonna believe whatever they want of you, and there is no way to combat that. People who want to know the truth and seek the truth and actually wanna know, if what they've been told is the truth or whether or not they wanna make up their minds for themselves, that's a special breed. I hate to say this, but we're moving quickly into an age where people are being told what to think and not how to think.
Mhm. So, for someone who's never experienced narcissistic or high conflict relationship dynamics, what does that experience actually feel like from the inside?
Oh, it's abuse. And it's mental abuse, and it is such unbelievable abuse. You're told on a daily basis that you're not measuring up. You're made to feel as if nothing you do is good enough, that you're completely inadequate, and that you don't have the right to have an opinion. You certainly don't have the right to get upset with the narcissist in any way. They're perfect. They can abuse you in any way that they want, and you're supposed to overlook it. You're supposed to forgive. You're supposed to move on. You're not supposed to bring it up. It is living in denial. It is such a world of gaslighting that, people talk about they think that they're going crazy. You do think you're going crazy, and many times you even look at and that's what's so sad is that it's often the person crying out for help, the one who can't get themselves up off the floor, the one who's so depressed or maybe drinking too much or screaming too much or that that's abuse. When someone's doing that, that's abuse.
Mhm.
And there's a reason someone's acting out. Everyone acting out is acting out from pain. Unless there's been some kind of diagnosis of, bipolar or some kind of serious mental disorder, which is very rare actually. Someone acting out is acting out of pain, they're acting out of abuse. And when you're with an abuser like this, they take that opportunity to paint you in a specific light, which brings in the people who want to believe that story without actually knowing what happened.
Yeah. What happens to our nervous system when we're living for a long time in conflict, fear, or constantly feeling like we need to defend ourselves? And what helped you begin getting out of that reactive state?
So when you're in that type of high conflict dynamic, you're experiencing CPTSD because your nervous system is constantly being abused repeatedly, different events. And so you're always on high alert. You're either in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And for me, it was fight and flight. And when you are on that high alert like that, you come out of these relationships and you're still on high alert. It's been 5 years for me, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anyone listening to this. I still have high alert. I'm still dealing with complex trauma. But one of the most incredible things that I've experienced has been EMDR. It's incredible for helping with that state.
That's one
Talk therapy is
Yeah, that's one therapy I've never had is the EMDR. I mean, I actually never had therapy. I do EFT and I've had healers like breath work and done other things, but I've never done EMDR. I've heard of it though. So that was one of the best. Okay, go ahead. Eye
I think
movement something, eye movement sensitivity, EMDR.
Uh, yeah, and so, when you do that, you're listening to sounds and the therapist is trying to put you into certain states and, you can go through years of trauma in a much shorter period of time, but that's not to say that talk therapy doesn't have its place too. But it's really important to have a therapist, and it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. I will admit that. That's why I started doing what I'm doing because finding a therapist that really understands it is very difficult. For example, I was told by one therapist how abused I was. And then in the next sentence, she's saying, but you need to take responsibility. So if a woman walks down a dark alley and she gets raped emotionally, like we were emotionally raped within an inch of our lives, those of us who've been through that kind of thing. So are we supposed to say, well, you have to take responsibility for walking down that alleyway? Are we supposed to say you shouldn't have worn that? Are we supposed to say you should have fought harder?
No.
So when someone's been abused, to ask them to take responsibility for their own actions, at the end of the day, we wouldn't have reacted like that had we not been abused. And you already feel as if it's your fault because your abusers told you it's your fault. They've told you that you
Mhm.
drove them to do whatever and that you're the problem and that, you have anger issues and that you don't have a right to be upset. And so victims come out of this being more victimized by therapists.
Yeah. So you talk about becoming unshakable. Does that mean we stop being hurt and triggered, or does it mean we learn what to do when those feelings show up?
Yeah. What that means is that we know that whatever comes at us, we're going to be able to cope with it because we've already been through hell and we've already come out of it. I mean, there was a day that I didn't think I was going to be able to get up off the floor. I really didn't. And when you pull yourself out of the depths of hell, like just for the point where you don't want to be here anymore, and you have no one supporting you, everyone has completely abandoned you because you've been labeled whatever it is they've wanted to label you, mentally unstable, and they know they're the ones that cause the abuse. And if you can pick yourself up from that, that doesn't mean you don't have pain. It doesn't mean that there's not tough days, but what it means is that you know that you're going to be able to cope with whatever comes your way because you've already gone up the mountain and now you're coming down the other side.
Mhm, and how did you learn the difference between setting healthy boundaries and trying to control another person?
That's an interesting question because a lot of people think that boundaries are set there to control other people. Our boundaries are not set here for me to make you behave. You're not a puppy. I'm not trying to teach you how to jump through a hoop or where to go pee pee or poo poo. I'm saying that I don't want you screaming at me. That's not for me to change your personality. I'm just saying, I don't want you screaming at me. That's not how I react. I've got a boundary that says, if you scream at me, I'm going to walk out of the room. I can't, that's not for me. That's not for me to that's just saying I can't interact like that. I literally mean it. It's not for me to retrain you. I know you're a screamer. I'm just
Mm,
saying that in the future, when it gets to that point, I'm going to walk out of the room. I can't change who you are. And that's where people get really confused. Well, you know what? If you don't change who you are, I can't talk to you. That's ridiculous. That's like me saying, I will only talk to you if your eyes turn brown. Well, guess what? Your eyes aren't going to turn brown. They're
mhm.
not. My eyes aren't going to turn blue. We can have boundaries all day long, but at the end of the day, it's about how I want to be treated, but it's not about me retraining you. Does that make a difference? People are so confused. They think, well, if you don't treat me exactly how I want to be treated, I'm going to leave. That person might not be able to do that. You're asking someone who might have, what if they're loud and Italian and that's just how they express themselves? Well, for you, it might be a little bit intimidating. Okay, I get it. Walk out of the room if it gets too intense for you. But you can't ask somebody to change their personality any more than what are they going to say? Well, my boundary is that you have to be able to be like me. You need to be able to engage like I do. People have gotten boundaries confused with training people how to behave.
Right.
No, that's not how a boundary works. A boundary is not about you telling somebody how they need to change their personality in order to fit yours.
Where does self-worth come into this? What happens when somebody else's rejection starts making us question our own value?
That's exactly what happens. And they do that on purpose. They want to bring you down to something that is so small that they can control you because it makes them feel bigger and it makes them feel better. And if they can knock you to your knees and knock you onto the floor, that makes them feel better. It's abuse. So when someone does something like that, that's what makes it so hard to get out of these relationships. That's what makes it so hard to come back from them because that self talk you've been told over and over again, whether it's from a parent or an abusive partner, that you're not good enough and that there's something wrong with you. And you begin to believe that.
And how do we come back from that? I mean, I dealt with my own things, but yeah, what steps would you have? I mean, obviously our self-worth is not determined by someone's response or someone's behavior or how you're treated or the status of a relationship, but at the same time, we're human and we have emotions and some of us are sensitive and we have beliefs that, like what would
Well,
you
let's face it, that's a misnomer. Our self worth is absolutely determined by how we are treated by our parents. If they treated us as if we were valuable, we were lovable, we were smart, and we were capable, we
right.
grew up believing that.
Conditional love though.
And then, so if we're with a partner who we love and believe in, and they're treating us the same way, well, it's that same trust that we have with a parent. We trust them. And if they're telling us that we're not good enough, et cetera, we begin to believe that. And how we come out of that, that is no easy task. That's not something that is easy.
That's
What
right.
we have to do is build our self confidence little by little. It's baby steps and beginning to trust ourselves and also knowing that it's comfortable for people who've been raised like that to meet abusers and marry abusers like that because it feels safe and it feels comfortable, even
Right.
though it's not because
Familiar.
it's familiar.
Yeah,
And
familiar.
then and so that's the first thing we have to do is we have to recognize when we're with someone like that to stay away from them. And you can't, people can't go from relationship to relationship. You have to take time to say, okay, who am I? Because you haven't had a chance to do that. You become people pleasers. You are always denying the self. Most of us are empaths and we're always putting everybody above us. So we have to take some time to pull back and have quiet time to say, who am I? And what are my value systems? And how do I want to be treated? And how do I say to someone, "That's not okay?" Maybe you don't even say it. Maybe you just walk away. I know being a single female, getting back into the dating world, I don't tell a man how he's going to treat me. People say, "Oh, you teach people how to treat you." No, you don't. No, you don't. They either know how to treat you or they don't. Again, I don't understand the whole world of my boundaries. I'm gonna no, no, no. People are who they are. And so you can't change people, even with your boundaries, even with
Well,
trying to teach them.
yeah, I'll comment on the, like, teach people how to treat you. It's like when they ask you on a date on a Saturday for Saturday night and you're not available, after a while, they start to realize, "I gotta ask her 3 days in advance or 4 days in advance to go out because she's not available when I ask her on short notice." But
I would
ultimately,
agree
they
with that, but his personality is already one to do
yeah,
the last minute. So maybe you taught him on that particular thing, but the next time he wants to do something very spontaneous or this or that, he's gonna go back to who he is.
yeah,
He's gonna
yeah,
say, "Hey, once you started dating, do you want," and maybe you're not like that. So that's something that you're gonna have to come together with. That's
yeah.
not he might say, "Oh, okay, she wants a 3-day in advance," but the way he's wired is to do things last minute. Maybe he's very
I
spontaneous.
mean, I
Maybe
don't
he waits
mind.
till the last minute,
Yeah, I mean, I don't
you
mind
know.
spontaneity, I'm just saying if you're just starting to date somebody, you have to be I get what you're saying. I mean, we don't have to agree on everything, but I do agree with you on so many things that you've said. But I would love to know, how do you grieve a relationship with someone who is still alive?
Well, you can't grieve a relationship with someone who's still alive. All you can do is say that at this moment in time, I'm not meant to be with that person because they're still alive. There is no closure. You only have closure in something that there's actually closure in when someone passes or, a job loss or maybe the end of a marriage and it's still grieving something that is no longer exists, but it's still a grief. And so someone who's still walking around who's still alive, while you can say, I've seen people plant trees and light candles and actually put themselves in a state of mind that this person has passed and try to put it behind them. That's really denying our reality. That's really trying to mess with something that's not actually true. So the only thing you can do in that point in time is say, this is the reality of it. And right now, I'm not in a relationship with this person. And yes, they're still walking around, but I have to look at my life on a daily basis and know that they're not a part of that. And so that moves us into acceptance
Yep.
instead of maybe grievance. And acceptance is how we do that. We have to say, at this moment in time, this is the reality. And the Buddhists say the closest thing to happiness is moving into acceptance, right? That's not easy because we fight that. We don't want to accept that reality. It's
Right,
painful.
right,
But the
but
more that
there's
we can move
always
in, yeah, but the quicker we can move into that acceptance stage is how we deal with it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and I like to reframe things and look for the positives because, there's always worse situations in life, right? And
Yeah.
so you have a huge following on TikTok, and that's how we found each other. And I'm just curious about your story, if you'd like to share it all a little bit before we find out and follow you, and just a little bit about your personal story that led you to be Coach Shawn that's doing this powerful work.
Yeah, so my story was my divorce moved very quickly. He had been on dating apps for quite some time. He was really abusive. He would stand in front of me and say, "I wish we lived in a different country so I could beat you." He brought me to a point where I felt so worthless about myself. I didn't know how to be whole anymore. At a 25-year marriage, we were divorced within 3 months,
Mm,
and 2 months after that, he was dating, and now he's already remarried. When someone moves on like that and makes you or you already feel as if you meant nothing, and then they actually show you that you meant nothing to them, that is absolutely devastating. That's betrayal trauma, it's abuse, it takes away everything that you ever knew or that you built together, and at that point, I was so incredibly broken, I tried to take my own life, and I can't tell you what it was like waking up in the hospital and still being alive. I was so disappointed that I was still there
mm,
and having to face the reality of what he had done, and he didn't care. He would have left me on the street as a homeless person.
mm,
He didn't care about taking care of me in any way whatsoever. He told my oldest son was being very disrespectful, and he said to him, "You can talk to her any way you want. She's no longer my wife." He allowed my children to disrespect me in every which way. So when someone does that to you, what do you have to live for? I spent 25 years raising a family and did an incredible job supporting him in a career, and he moved on as if I didn't exist. So what do you do after that? How do you pick yourself back up after that? I had to get to a point where I had to say, yes, these were my accomplishments. And yes, it's not like a career where you put all of it in and you hope to reap the benefits. And my children are doing very well, and I'm very proud of them. But was it what I wanted? Was it where I wanted to go? Am I really necessarily a part of their lives like I wanted to be and should have been and could have been had I been married to someone different? No. But at the end of the day, I had to say, these don't define me. Not only the good, my children doing well, but the bad as well, what he did to me, none of it defines me. Here, I had to make a breaking point and say, from here forward, who is Shawn? Because I didn't know who she was. What does it mean? And how do I get to where I want to be? Who is she going to be in 5 years and in 10 years and in 20 years? And how is she going to become the woman that she needs to be? Because all I've done is give for 25 years or more to my children, to him, to our home, always give. And so what I had to do was say, all right, I can't let him define me or the life that I led for 25 years define me. I have to make my future my future. And what does that look like? And as far as coaching, I kind of stumbled into it. I went to law school, took the LSATs after my divorce, and I went to law school. And I was just about to finish my finals, my L1 year, and my mom got deathly ill and she passed. She passed last summer. And at that point, I had to make a decision. I had to say, am I going to stay in law school or am I going to take care of my mom? And I chose to take care of my mom. That's what I don't understand about parental alienation. Was she a perfect mom? No, but she was my mom. You only get one. And so I was holding her hand when she passed, and I was there with her every day when she was in the hospital. And that means more to me than anything. And I had done some coaching prior, obviously, to that. I had started my coaching career prior to going into law school, and I had kept it for a while. But after that, I just felt a phenomenal calling to go back to it and teach people and help people and be there, because there's very few of us that have been through this type of hell. And I'm not saying that therapists don't have, obviously, their place. They do. But it's the difference between a history professor talking about World War II and the soldiers that were actually storming Normandy. Who would you rather talk to? The soldier that was on the beach and it was running the sand and could smell death around him and was actually witnessing it? Or do you want to talk to a professor that's reading about it in a history book? I'm the soldier on the beach. I've been there. And so many times when my clients come to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like you really get it." Yeah, I really get it because I've lived it and I'm still living it. And that's what brought me to be a coach, because I thought, okay, where does Shawn want to be? Shawn wants to make a difference. What can she do? She can help people. And what does that look like? That looks like starting an online business and letting people know that I'm here for them. And then it just took off from there.
Yeah, it took off. You have a huge following. So what about your spiritual practice? Did you have any faith, like, growing up, or, like, when this all went down, you wanted to take your life? I mean, because I also went through a lot of darkness not that long ago, and I had to pick myself up off the ground and felt I had nobody except the dog and God, and I started plugging in with the rabbi, and I got I knew I was worthy just for breathing, but I got a little more depth around that. Like, I actually realized my worth is not determined by other people. My worth is not determined by how much I produce. It's just, I woke up today. Thank you, God. So God believes in me, or I wouldn't have woke up today. Or there's a purpose. We all have a purpose and we're made on purpose. So I'm just curious for you on the
So
spiritual.
I love that. I think that's really great. And you said yourself and your dog and God. I've been there too. And that's why you do what you do. And that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
I grew up Catholic. My mom was a very strong Catholic. She went to all girl Catholic school growing up. I went through a testament of faith. I'm not going to lie. I went through a time where I thought, how could God let this happen? I knew there was a God. I never denied there was a God, but I denied whether or not he was good. I thought, if you can let this happen, then you must be exactly like them.
Mm.
You must be a narcissist too. You sent your only son to die on a cross. Like, how could you possibly ask him to do? I mean, I tested my faith left, right, side, center. But at the end of the day, after I went through that storm, I look back and I realize how much God was holding me and keeping me safe. Whatever our faith, whether it's the rabbi or whether it's a priest or whether it's the preacher, he's still there. There's one creator, and and everybody can debate that, but we didn't come from a big bang. It just didn't happen. We're spinning around in the middle of the universe, and there's people and there's trees and there's people can say, this is what I always love. Well, I believe, okay, well, I can look at a tree and I go, I believe that's a unicorn, and I can believe it all day long, but at the end of the day, it's still a freaking tree.
Yeah.
So, everybody can believe what they want, but at the end of the day, somebody created us, somebody made the
Yeah.
world, and it didn't happen from a big bang. And so that's where we're at. And so today, I do sometimes think that God is on a beach drinking a pina colada. Sometimes I really do feel like he's not there, but I'm gonna say this, and I mean, I don't have a choice but to believe because where else if it's not for our faith, what else do we believe in? What else is gonna get us through? We have to believe
Yeah.
that there is something better on the other side for us.
Yeah, for sure. I know. So you talk a lot about the cutoff culture too, don't you?
Yeah. That really upsets me. You know, while I know that sometimes we have to do things to protect ourselves, but it has become such a sign of I am so strong. And if you don't obey by my boundaries, again, if you don't do what I deem you should do or how you need to act, like it's not even about the other person. Like people don't even take a chance to say, well, can this person even meet me where I need to be? Maybe we need to find a happy medium together. I can't just say, this is where I'm at and you have to meet me here. I can't draw a line here when you can only come to here. When did we get there? And then if that happens, we're going to have to cut it off. Cut off culture has become so predominant. I look at post after post and it's like, I'm going to walk away and you don't meet my boundaries, I'm out of here. And it's so much of that instead of communication. And we've got a shut off culture epidemic, especially with estrangement. And these kids are cutting their parents off left, right, side, center. No parent is perfect. And I'm not talking about a parent that's bad, but everybody wants to relabel bad versus good. I'm not going to get into that. That's like talking about when does life begin? I'm not going to get into that. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to wade into that water. At the end of the day, children need their moms and dads, and their moms and dads need their children. These kids who cut off, they tend to have lots of health issues. They tend to have personality disorders. They tend to have broken marriages. Their kids turn around and do it to them. It becomes a cycle of dysfunction. It's not, you don't do that. None of us are going to have perfect parents unless you truly have a parent or even a child. It can work both ways that is truly toxic that you say, I cannot have a relationship. But at the end of the day, we need to talk about love. We need to talk about being a parent and what that means. And also loving your parents. That means you try, and you mend, you talk. None of the parents that I talk to, their alienated kids aren't sitting down on the couch having a conversation with them. Have a conversation.
Mhm.
Stop acting like juvenile infants. And that goes for the parents too. I also have kids that reach out to me, estranged kids, and say, I've reached out to my mom or dad so many times and they won't talk to me. That blows my mind. It works both ways. And in marriages, the breakdown of marriages, that's another thing too. We have to come together and communicate. We can't say, if you don't meet my needs and if you don't do this and if you don't do that, then I'm out of here. When did we become a generation of being conditional instead of being traditional, which is keep the family together?
Yeah.
This isn't helping anyone.
No. Yeah, it's so predominant. I mean, it's so crazy, and I don't know why, and I'm wondering, is it therapists? Is it social media? Like, what has caused this? And I think this is why your message resonates so much with so many people, is because they're experiencing it, right? Is that why do you think your message is resonating so much?
Well, you're asking the right question. What is it? And it's a combination of everything. You look at television shows, it's always the man is cheating and there's all this money and it's all about prestige and the marriages always break down and that's considered entertainment, the drama. And if it's a comedy, the parents are idiots and the children are running everything. There's not even a place for these younger kids to go look at what a happy, healthy family is. If you think about the television shows that we all grew up on, Little House on the Prairie and the Waltons and I don't know, Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best. Those shows don't exist.
So I have a couple quick questions, but I have to wrap up because unfortunately I have another. I know we could talk for so long, but for someone listening who's in the middle of the storm right now, divorce, estrangement, betrayal, damaged reputation, what would you tell him or her about the life that can exist on the other side?
Well, I'm gonna be 1,000% honest. I'm not gonna say that leaving your marriage is going to create some beautiful life for you. There are circumstances where women stay, and that is the better because I will tell you, post-divorce abuse is real, and parental alienation is real, and I'm not saying a woman should stay, and I'm not saying a woman should leave. So many people wanna say, "Oh, you've gotta leave, you've gotta get out." That Every situation is different. And if someone is going through it right now, they need someone to talk to. And I call it going down the rabbit hole. Okay, what's it going to look like if you leave? Let's go down that rabbit hole. How are you going to take care of yourself? What are the finances going to look like? What's the possibilities? What might happen with the children? What is he going to do? Or what is she going to do? What's post separation abuse actually going to look like?
Well, I get
Versus
all that, but I feel like making decisions from fear is not the way either. Fear that you're not gonna have much
that's what I'm
period.
talking about. This is
Okay.
about information. So we've got to go down the rabbit hole. So we have to look at each and everything. So if you stay, what does that look like?
Right.
What are the financial picture? Are you going to be able to manage staying with him or her? What happens to your mental state if you stay? So that's what I'm talking about. We have to make
Okay, you're
informed
saying
this
just
because you are in such a state and talk to someone who's been there, done that because you're in such a state, you can't make that kind of a decision. You can't. I know when I filed, I didn't think about that. I didn't go down any rabbit
right,
holes.
but we don't know what's it's gonna look like. Like, that I mean, when you say, like, if you leave, what's gonna happen, we don't know we don't you don't know what another person's gonna do.
But you do.
You do?
Because every narcissist, we already know what they do. We know what they do. And I'm going to say this I just filed. I was in so much pain. I filed. Nobody took me down a rabbit hole. I wish somebody had. Okay, Shawn, how are you going to make a living? What are the actual finances? He controlled all the finances. I didn't look at them. I didn't know. Also, nobody told me this parental alienation was something that could happen. Was it already happening when I was still married? Yes, that's why my children were being so incredibly disrespectful. I didn't know what parental alienation was. So what I'm saying is we're not in a place where we're even capable of making such a decision. And I wish someone had said to me, Shawn, before you go make a decision, talk to someone who's been there, done that and can give you some advice on what it
No, that's
might
good.
look like.
That is good
I
advice.
don't have a crystal ball, but I can say this is the possibility of what it might look like if you leave, and this is the possibility of what it might look like if you stay.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
just making an informed decision.
Okay. So someone who's listening that's in the middle of a storm, you're suggesting they talk to someone. That's good advice. And would you tell
I
them
would recommend getting a very informed decision because when we're in these broken states, we move out of emotion instead of facts, and we need facts. We need facts. We're so hurt and we're in such a trauma state that we just want to get out or we're too afraid to leave. And we're moving from emotion and
True.
we need someone who can help us make sense of what's happening to us because we aren't capable. We just can't do it in that state. Our minds don't work that way.
I know we can talk on this for quite a while, and I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time and everything. Okay. So, what's the difference between telling our story because we're still trying to prove something and telling it because we've actually transformed through it?
That's a good question because if we're telling our story, if we're moving from a place of pain and we want to be heard, that's one thing, and that's okay too. But if we're telling our story from a place, I've been there, done that, just like I was saying, sometimes it's better to leave and sometimes it might be better to stay. We're moving from a place of experience. I'm not coming from a place of pain. I'm saying we have to look at both things. And I'm also saying that I've done enough talk therapy and I've done a lot of other things. I can say from a fact that EMDR definitely helps. So that's something that I can move at from fact. I'm not saying I'm in a place of pain and I think you should do this because, that's a viable option. I've actually done it and I know what it's like to go from A to B or B to C. Now, when I first got into coaching, I feel like I was kind of probably moving from a place of pain. I wanted my story to be heard. Now I don't care so much about my story. I want it to come from a place of fact and a place of been there, done that, and a place of experience so I can help other people move in another direction.
So, you've experienced estrangement with your family, and today you have a relationship with two of your children. And without sharing anything that you want to keep private, what have you learned about reconciling, letting go of control, allowing relationships to evolve in their own time?
Sure. So I always like to distinguish a little bit between estrangement and alienation. So there's a lot of estranged kids out there, means no one was out there in their ear telling them how bad the other parent was. So alienation is another parent, typically it could be an in-law or grandparent, but typically another parent alienating you from your other parent. And estrangement were is part of just I maybe had two good parents or whatever, and for whatever reason, I just feel as if they didn't do a good enough job, even if they're amazing parents, and I feel vindicated in cutting them off. Okay, so it can kind of go both ways, but certainly alienation turns into estrangement over time. But I always like to distinguish that. But as far as alienation goes, that is again you're battling a narrative about you that another parent is actually instilling in your own children against you. That's really hard. That's a really hard thing because they want to, that means to them, one of my parents is lying. One of my parents is telling me not to love the other parent. And who do I believe? Well, it's easier to believe the alienating parent because then if you have to go against that parent and you have to side with that parent, then you're actually siding against the power and control. So this parent is typically broken. This parent is typically not functioning on all four cylinders. This parent is typically not going to be there for you in the capacity that they could because they're too broken. This parent is telling you, oh, I'm here. And typically they've got money and they look like the stronger parent and the more in control parent. Well, of course, naturally the kids are going to gravitate here because it's a matter of safety. We're wired, especially as children, to be taken care of, to grow, to be nurtured, to be in a safe environment. And if this parent is presenting themselves as the safer parent, that's who we're going to go with.
Is there ever a way to get back with the kid when that is happening, the parental alienation? It depends too on the age of the kids because the mental, like, isn't it like the brain develops at a certain.
The brain supposedly develops fully by the age of 25 for the most part, but I have seen parents who were married 30 something years and because alienation starts in the marriage, these kids have been being alienated from the start because it's not like you're married to a healthy spouse. The spouse isn't going, "Oh, look at your mom or dad, aren't they great?" and loving you and your partner. No, no, it's always been like this and they've always been putting you down, especially behind your back. And so when the divorce happens, these kids, the alienating parent expects loyalty and they want you to take a side. I've seen 35-year-olds, 40-year-olds, their parents get divorced and they pick a side. And so you would think that they would know that as they get older, but sometimes it runs so deep they don't. And so how you combat it is you try to be whatever the parent has painted you as the opposite. And that's really hard to do when you're coming out of these things. So if they paint you as mentally unstable, well, you are mentally unstable because they've abused the shit out of you for decades. And so, you try your best to get help. You try your best to live a life that proves them wrong. We are reactive and we do want to defend ourselves. And we can't do that because it comes off as being unsafe to our children. And so we hope and pray that at least the door stays open. Some of these kids, they don't give it a chance. And so these kids also end up, a lot of them are suicidal. A lot of them end up getting divorced themselves. A lot of them end up on drugs. It's not natural to hate a parent just because you've been told by the other parent to do so. In a healthy, normal dynamic, if one of the parents were exhibiting signs of pain or unrest, a healthy family would come around them and protect them and want to help them. Well, in these dynamics, the parent who's exhibiting these types of things, typically from abuse, is labeled as unstable and they're abandoned as bad. And that's so dysfunctional. Let's just wrap our heads around that a minute. Your children abandon a parent because they're told by another parent that they're all bad and this parent is left flailing. A lot of these parents are killing themselves. So many parents, suicide after suicide after suicide. I hear about it all the
Oh,
time, and it
terrible.
breaks my heart.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, I understand. I do understand being in that sad, dark place, but let's try to shift gears into the reconciliation, into continuing to live a full life while leaving your heart open to relationships that may change, trying to focus on the healing and the hope and.
So, as far as keeping the door open, I always say keep touch points. So many times we get hurt. And so we want to close that door as parents because it's too painful. And we just want to say, you know what, it's fine. You don't want to be in my life. You want to treat me that way. I'll just pretend as if the living do not exist. That's not possible. They're still living. We can do the best we can, but we can't fool our brains. Again, it's like saying the tree is a unicorn. It's not a unicorn. Our kids are still alive, so we can't mourn the living. They're still living. Like, it's not possible, so it's kind of a misnomer. But at the end of the day, keeping those touch points is really important, and it's hard because when you text your child multiple times and they don't respond, or they've blocked you, or they won't take your calls, that's really hard, but I say, if there's a way to try to let them know. I have so many people that reach out to me and say, "I was an estranged child, and my mom," I'm gonna cry. "My mom or dad didn't give up on me. They kept reaching out." And while we can't subject ourselves to being abused if our child is putting their hands on us or lying in court or saying, "If you reach out to me again, I'm gonna call the police on you and get a restraining." I mean, there are points at which, you kinda just have to let the reins go. But if you can keep contact with your child and let them know how much you love them, I do see a lot of these estranged children come back. And life will teach them, hopefully. The narcissist typically screws up somewhere. They're going to get divorced again. They're going to go through another whatever. They're going to lose their job again. And the kids are going to begin to feel, wait a minute, dad keeps or mom keeps pulling me to separate from my other parent. Eventually, the truth will come through for a lot of these kids. And I've seen a lot of them say, I just went back because I started questioning what my parent was doing, and I missed my mom or my dad, or I wanted a relationship, or my kids started getting older and started asking questions about where grandma or grandpa is, and I couldn't really give them an answer.
Yeah.
So it's really important just to let them know that you're always going to be there and
Mhm.
that you love them. And
Yeah.
so it's really important to give them two things: unconditional love and forgiveness.
Mhm.
We can't say to our child any more than we want them saying to us, "Well, you acted like X, Y, and Z when you were married to mom or dad." Yeah, because you were being abused and you were in a terrible mental state. We don't want them holding us accountable for that because we really can't. We feel bad about it. It wasn't done on purpose. They'd acted out in the same way. We have to give that bridge and say, okay, they treated us the way that they did because they were also being abused by the parent.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Um, and then like hope. How can you just move forward and focus on yourself? And like that's what the advice I would give is like build a life, you raised them and you did your part and just keep the faith and hope and pray and just be grateful they're alive, be grateful for, what is working, like that they're maybe self-sufficient and different things, and focus on yourself and getting healthy and happy and
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's not ever going to be like this in a day. More joyful than pain. It's going to be like this on any given day. And some days it might be like this. It's not linear. It's going to go down and up and down and up. Healing is, it's a goal. We're never healed completely. It's like a scar. It fades over time. But the goal is to have days and moments, not even maybe days, maybe the morning is filled with a little more joy and happiness over your cup of coffee and the beautiful sunshine and playing with your dog or walking your dog. Maybe the evenings are filled with a little more sadness and wishing that, you had whatever time with your child. But at the end of the day, it's that we just keep moving forward and you say hope. And, I always tell parents, always keep a crack. So many of us are in so much pain, we just want to slam that door because we think that's going to stop the pain. And it might for a little while, but the pain's going to come back. So we have to keep hope. We have to say, that this will hopefully change one day because there are kids at the end of the day. And many of these parents are alienated from grandchildren too. And that's a whole nother bag of pain that these parents
yeah.
or grandparents are dealing
I have
with.
a friend here, a new friend. I have many people I know here that have are cut off by their children, adult children, but one woman hasn't talked to her daughter in 10 years, and she shared some things recently, but the daughter has 2 children, and she doesn't even know their names.
How sad
And
is that for the children, the
and and
grandchildren?
and it's awful, and she would be the most wonderful grandma, and, like, just giving and just loving, but I feel that parental alienation was absolutely at play for her with her leaving husband, yeah, and
Absolutely,
and
1000%.
yeah,
Yeah, if you say that she's a good
yeah, I
person
mean,
and
I'm
she would be a great grandmother, I mean,
right,
I mean, she's not gonna abuse her grandkids.
yeah,
Her daughter's obviously been brainwashed, and how sad is it for these grandchildren because grandparents play such a phenomenal role in the development, like we were talking about earlier, where you said, like, "How do we build confidence?" Whatever, and I said it comes from our childhood, and so grandparents are phenomenal at building confidence and
oh,
helping
yeah,
children to feel secure and loved. How sad is that? What I find more sad is that the daughter, like, I hear all the time when kids have kids, they have a better understanding. I don't know why the daughter has it occurred to her that her children may grow up and do the same thing to her? Do you know how many parents I coach that said I alienated my mom or my dad and now my kids are alienating me? Don't do it. Anybody listening to this, it's the dumbest thing you could possibly do. It's going to come back probably to bite you in the butt. Don't
yeah,
do that.
yeah, and like you said, the 10 Commandments thing, right? Honor your parents, and, there's another and this particular woman friend of mine has 0 hope that she'll ever, yeah, reconnect.
It's been a decade, so she
Yeah,
probably does, but
and then there's
yeah,
another
I've
guy
seen it
who's
happen. I
yeah,
have, I've seen it happen.
yeah, I do t I think hope is something to absolutely hold on to and faith and hope because anything can happen and change it. But there's another guy friend who has yeah, he has, 2 adult daughters and 1 it's been 4 years, so, yeah, it's
I
like
had a man that sat in front of me, grown man, crying, just heaving, crying. His children were being alienated from him. He'd been alienated from his father, and he finally reached out to his father, and his father had terminal cancer, and he only had 2 years with them. He'd lost 30 years with him. He stopped talking to him when he was, like, 22. His dad and I hear these stories all the time. I've got another client whose mom died of breast cancer, and now she's being alienated. Her mom died shortly after she got married, and her father completely turned her against her mother, and now she's been alienated from her children, and
yeah, it's
this has
awful.
got to stop. This is just
Right.
awful.
Yeah. What thank you for all of this, sharing everything. Did you wanna say anything about your own situation or anything?
Mm, not really because
Okay.
it's just so fresh with
Okay.
my daughter and my son. I don't even know where it's gonna go.
Yeah. I just appreciate what you're doing out there on TikTok and helping people. How do you share like, how do you deal with all the comment? You must get all kinds of things going on, and I've been in certain groups, and I've seen some things, and it's like, there's some interesting things going on. So how do you handle all that, being a influencer as you are?
Most of comments I have to say are people saying, "Thank you, I really appreciate it," but I get this indra and it just shows how dysfunctional these kids are because they leave the most disgusting comments, like, "I hope my mom dies alone. You look like a narcissistic bitch. Fuck you. The best thing I ever did was walk away from my parents," and it's very obvious that these kids are traumatized. There's something wrong with them, and so they weren't raised in a healthy environment, which tells me either one or both of the parents did something to these children. Whether or not it's that they're if you really were abused by a parent, you don't feel the need to leave those kind of comments. They're trying to justify whatever it is, they're angry, and so a lot of these kids are alienated kids, and they're angry. Of course, they're angry because they're being denied a rightful relationship with a parent, and so what I do with those comments, I block and delete. I don't respond, I block and delete
Yeah, that's good.
because that's all I can do.
Yeah, I'm sure we could talk so much longer. I do want to share where people can find you, anything you want to share with the audience before we wrap up, and also one last question. So you tell me what you want to share, or you want the one last.
Do the one last question.
The one
Yeah.
last question is, what does a worthy and abundant life look like for you, to you?
My answer is not going to be the best answer. A worthy and abundant life would have been to have my family. It would have been to have my children. It would have had to have been my marriage intact and be grandma to my grandchildren. But since that is not going to happen, now I have to look at, like I said, okay, this is a draw, this is a line. I think about everything in my mind before and after the divorce. This is what my life could have been and what I wished it would have been. But now what does that look like? And now it looks like taking care of my health, having longevity, making good girlfriends, making wise choices, enjoying a walk with my dog, helping other people, traveling, going out to restaurants, even if it's by myself or traveling by myself. It's finding little joys in my life that make me feel happy. Maybe it's a sunset. I'm going to Greece next month with a girlfriend. It's whatever little things we can do to find some sort of peace in our day.
I love that so much. Yeah. And every day is a gift, right? And I just think a spiritual practice helps a lot. Whatever works for you that makes you feel good and feel better and move forward, right? And yeah, I love that. I think we're all inherently worthy, as I said, just for breathing. And woke up today, you're worthy. Your worth is not determined by how someone treats you or the status of your relationship. You are worthy and you are a child of the highest God, and so you're part of the one, you're someone, you're some of the one, you're a masterpiece, a piece of the master. And this is I learned from a spiritual coach, and she learned straight from a rabbi in Israel, and he said, "You are a masterpiece, a piece of the master." So,
Oh,
with
I
that
love that.
yes, and we
Yeah.
are abundant because we live in an abundant universe. There's lots of love, there's lots of air, there's no shortage, right? In the trees, in the everything. Everything's a resource, and yeah, so I love that, and I like to focus on the good. I have a gratitude practice I've been doing since 2012 when I had a health condition that I was battling, and I think gratitude is a very quick way to shift. I mean, you're a beautiful woman, you're smart, you have so much. There's so many blessings, you know? There's so many I
I
just
do agree with the gratitude. And I think when we focus on that, obviously, as you know, it does make it better.
oh,
It
yeah.
really does.
It really,
And
really
there's always something to be grateful for because, like you say, it could always be worse.
it can always be so much worse.
Yeah.
Be blessed, be grateful. Everything's a gift. My eyesight's a gift. I have legs. There's so many blessings, and I think that shifting your mindset into gratitude and is such a huge way to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's so true. Yeah.
Yes. Do you have any special practices that you do to feel good or
I have grounding practices. I still deal with a lot of anxiety from the CPTSD from the abuse. And so I ground myself a lot. I'll do this is my arm and I'm alive. This is my shoulder and I'm here. Or I say, this is a table and I touch the coldness of it. Or I'll go get something cold out of the refrigerator and touch it to my body to bring me back because I still deal with a lot of flashbacks. And I think a lot of us that have been through so much trauma, we deal with those flashbacks. And that's what produces a lot of that anxiety because whenever we think about the past, it puts us right back in that feeling and that emotion. And I use a lot of grounding practices to bring me back to the present. And I'll even say, I'll hug myself and say, I love you.
yes,
I'm here and it's okay. And I'll hug myself.
yes,
And that helps me a lot, a
yeah.
lot.
I love that too. Self-compassion is so huge because we all have an inner critic. And I think that I interviewed someone for the show, this young girl, a manifestation coach and brilliant girl. I mean, these people that are younger and younger and younger every day, but she knows a lot. And she told me about this book, and it's by Matt Kahn, and I have it. And it says, whatever arises, love that. Whatever arises, love that. I think that's the name of the title. And it's a book on like acceptance, right? And it's also a book on self love. And like he teaches in the book that when you know that you are there for you and you really get that message, like you really fully love and accept and forgive yourself. And we all have parts, right? You have like your 12-year-old self, your younger self, we have all these parts, like that's the internal family systems therapy and stuff. But like when you start reparenting you and just getting back into and you're gonna be unshakable almost because you have you. Like, you're safe, you're good, right? Because you've got
Right.
It's
I
like
love that. Yeah, it's
I'm
true.
a mom to those 4 adult children, and I'm a mom, and I can be my mom, and
Yes.
I can be my mother
We can
even.
have our own backs. We
Yeah,
can be our own best friend. We can be our own warrior.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You might be able to find me under Coach Shawn, but certainly under Shawn Howerton. And I'm across all the platforms. You can also find me at www.shawnhowerton.com.
Thank you so much, Shawn. It was great talking. I appreciate you sharing so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.